Welcome to Free Thought Matters. I'm Dan Barker.
I'm Annie Laurie Gaylor. Dan and I are executive directors of the Freedom From Religion Foundation, which produces this talk show about non-believers and the need to keep religion out of government. FFRF is the nation's largest association of freethinkers, atheists, and agnostics, and we work as a state church watchdog. We invite you to join us in our very important work today, or ask for a sample of our newspaper, Free Thought Today, at ffrf.org.
Our guest today is a AAA freethinker. Indra Zuno is an actor, an author, and an atheist. Indra was born and raised in Mexico. She's appeared in movies such as The Virgin of Juarez, and on television, she is best known for her characters in the telenovelas Mi Querida Isabel and Camila. She now lives in California, where her day job is as a court interpreter. Indra hosts the Facebook page La Morena Escéptica, the dark-haired skeptic.
And we saw Indra when she spoke at the Reason Rally in Washington, D.C. in 2012. But Indra's true love is writing. She's an award-winning author, and her debut book, released last year, is called Freedom Dues, a sweeping historical novel about white indentured servitude in early 18th century colonial America. Thank you so much for joining us, Indra.
Good morning, guys. Thank you for having me.
¿Y cómo está la escritora famosa?
Escritora, pero todavía no famosa. Esperamos que pronto.
She says she doesn't think she's that famous of an author yet, but maybe very, very soon. Well, I hope so, because your book is quite a read. Your new book, Freedom Dues, is a real adventure, early 1700s colonial America. And we want to talk about your book in a few minutes. But first, you have your own adventure story. You were born in Guadalajara, is that right?
Correct. I was born in Guadalajara, Jalisco, but I actually moved around a lot to Cuernavaca, Mexico City, the state of Mexico, Southern California.
And you have some famous Mexican relatives. Tell us about your grandfather.
My paternal grandfather was the governor of the state of Jalisco, and he was the founder of the University of Guadalajara. He was a wonderful intellectual, and he was friends with the likes of Rufino Tamayo and Diego Rivera. Unfortunately, when I was born, he was already very elderly, so I didn't really get to know him.
So Guadalajara is in the state of Jalisco, so he was the governor in that state.
And wasn't he very progressive?
He was. He was actually an atheist, so all of my aunts and uncles were atheists. And my father was an atheist.
So isn't that pretty unusual in Mexico?
Very unusual. I think it's not as unusual anymore, but we're definitely still a minority.
Now, speaking of your aunts and uncles, one of your aunts married the president of Mexico, Echeverria, right?
Yes, one of my father's sisters married Luis Echeverria, president from 1970 to 76.
I was there during that time. I was a young missionary trying to convert you really bad Catholics into the true religion of Protestantism, and he was president at that time. I remember that.
So you came from an atheist family, but was there still religion in your upbringing, and did you have to think your way out of religion?
I was raised in an entirely secular household until the age of 7, because even though my mom was born in a very, very Catholic family, she was not dogmatic at all. When my parents divorced, my maternal grandparents were very upset because, I had never been baptized and I was already, 7, 8 years old. So then I started getting more of a Catholic education. I was living with my mom when she enrolled me in middle school and private Catholic school for middle school and high school. And so for all those years, I did believe in God, but it just didn't take.
So then you became an actor, and you became pretty well known in Mexico. And we're going to look at a couple of clips that you acted in. The first one, you're playing a nun, and is that Minnie Driver in that scene? the actress?
Yes, that is Minnie Driver.
So you're playing a nun in a scene with her, and it's both Spanish and English. And then after that, a totally different kind of a role. Let's look at Indra Zuno.
Isidro, trajeron a una muchacha. Es una trabajadora de las fábricas. Dicen que la atacaron.
No sabes si es Lisbeth.
No sé.
Can I help you?
She was released?
I'm sorry?
The girl who was here, what happened to her?
I...
Me arreglé para ti. Tómame, Miguel. Soy tuya.
That's great. Tómame, Miguel, soy tuya. Take me, Miguel, I am yours. What totally different roles you were playing. A nun with a big cross on in the hospital, and then going to a seductress scene.
Yes. Now, when I shot the seductress scene, I still believed in God, even though I was never dogmatically Catholic. But then when I shot the nun scene, I was an atheist.
So in both cases, you're sinning, aren't you? You're doing the opposite.
So what was the pivotal reason at that point to realizing you didn't believe in a God?
When I was in my mid-20s, one day the thought popped into my mind, what if there isn't a God? And I don't remember anything triggering this, but it was a very unpleasant thought. It really overwhelmed me because I thought, if there isn't a God, then there's no purpose in anything. Why are we even here? Why am I brushing my teeth? Why am I having lunch? And just for my own peace of mind, I very purposefully buried that thought and didn't think about it anymore. But by the time I was 28, I could no longer reconcile all the horrible things that happen in the world, whether it's natural disasters or man-made disasters. And I no longer could justify it by thinking, it's all part of God's plan and we just don't know. Our little brains can't understand it. And that's when I decided, it's there's no one out there. And that time it didn't cause me any anxiety. It was actually a weight off of my shoulders.
Wow. But you've heard the saying that without God, you can't be a good person. How can you be a good person if you don't believe in God to control you?
Right. Well, the reason why I am a good person is because it just makes life much easier, because it's good in itself, because I think that the purpose in life is to achieve as much pleasure as possible. The good kind of pleasure, not just go woohoo, crazy, and drink as much as you want and eat as much as you want. Just lead a healthy life that's going to make your environment better as much as you can. And that means acting in a certain way, which is what we call good.
So Indra, just to get back to the acting, at some point, you must have had fans. People must have recognized you in Mexico, and you must get that kind of acclaim. At some point, some of them must have realized that you're an atheist. What's that been like?
I actually don't know, because I lost my faith in God the same year that I moved from Mexico City to Southern California. And so I did not experience, still being a celebrity in Mexican television and living there and coming out of the closet. I don't know if most of those fans actually realize that I'm an atheist. I suspect that they don't, because the only way that they can know is if they're in my Facebook profile, my personal profile, and I don't accept as friends anyone that I don't personally know.
Or maybe if they saw you at the Reason Rally. I mean, you were quite a hit there. You spoke in Spanish at the Reason Rally, right?
Yes, I did. But I suspect that the people, the Spanish-speaking audience that saw the Reason Rally were, it was already a captive audience. Like they're already in the fold. So I'm pretty sure that they were happy to see, this person that we've seen on television, she's an atheist and she's willing to come out and say it. I understand that. But I don't know if the bulk of the Catholic viewership in Latin America knows about the recent rally.
Well, let's go down and tell them. We'll be another missionary.
So since the Reason Rally, I believe you were speaking out on your Facebook page, but you have created a new Facebook page, The Dark-Haired Skeptic, which I cannot say in Spanish. How do you say that?
La Morena Escéptica.
And so can you talk about that activism and what you write about?
Yes. Years ago, it dawned on me that I didn't really was aware of any YouTuber that was trying to debunk urban myths or disinformation, but there are a lot of English-speaking ones. And I kept thinking, maybe I should do it. And I finally started that a few weeks ago because of the COVID pandemic and all the misinformation that's out there. And a Spanish-speaking, mostly Catholic WhatsApp group that I'm in, they were asking, hey, is chlorine dioxide, really good to cure and prevent COVID? And I thought, chlorine dioxide, what is that? If the Washington Post hasn't reported on it, I don't know how I could have missed it. So I looked it up and I opened up this can of worms. Chlorine dioxide is an industrial disinfectant. And years ago, a con artist decided to create a religion around chlorine dioxide. He decided that this was their sacrament and that it's like snake oil. It cures everything, autism, cancer, you name it. And it's just gotten so big. And now that we have the pandemic, they are saying, and a lot of people believe, that chlorine dioxide cures and prevents it. And it's actually very harmful. You just can't swallow it because it's used to disinfect surfaces.
Is that what they're saying? People should drink chlorine dioxide?
So they're taking Trump's advice, unfortunately. Yes. So this is a church in Mexico?
No, it's a worldwide church. It's, God, I can't remember. Oh, God. Oh, Jesus, baby Jesus. I can't remember the name right now.
That's okay. So we have to take a break. And when we come back, we want to talk a little bit more about your Facebook column, and then we're going to talk about your new novel.
About your exciting new novel, Freedom Dues. We're talking with the actress, the author, and atheist, Indra Zuno. We'll be right back after this break.
Hi, I'm Ron Reagan, an unabashed atheist, and I'm alarmed by the intrusions of religion into our secular government. That's why I'm asking you to support the Freedom from Religion Foundation, the nation's largest and most effective association of atheists and agnostics, working to keep state and church separate, just like our founding fathers intended. Please support the Freedom from Religion Foundation. Ron Reagan, lifelong atheist, not afraid of burning in hell.
My name's Jarvis, and I'm an out-of-the-closet atheist. There are many reasons why I'm an atheist, but I'll start with the crudest explanation. I'm sure many of you have seen Clash of the Titans or The Immortals or 300, these blockbuster films about ancient Greek or Roman religion, which we now call mythology. But back then it wasn't mythology. It was very real for them. They genuinely believed that you had to put a coin in a person's mouth before they were buried so that they could pay for the literal ferry to the afterlife. Just as many people today believe that they should eat crackers and wine on a Sunday, or that God wants women to hide their bodies under black burqas. Every religion that has ever existed, and there are many, have all believed that they were right, that their rituals and rules and beliefs were 100% correct. And they all thought they nailed it. But where are they today? If they're not completely forgotten, they're on the silver screen, amusing us with their sword fights, animal sacrifices, and oracles. The religions of today are the entertainment of tomorrow. Everyone, I hope, is an atheist about Zeus and Apollo, Juno and Poseidon. I just added Jesus and Muhammad to that list.
And welcome back to Free Thought Matters. I'm Dan Barker with Annie Laurie Gaylor. We're continuing our conversation with the actress, the author, and the atheist, and now the atheist activist, Indra Zuno. You saw some clips of her acting on Mexican TV and on some movies before the break. And now we want to talk about your book. I read your book, Freedom Dues, and it's a fascinating story, totally unexpected, about white indentured servitude in 18th century colonial America. So tell us, how did you come up with this idea, and why a book about white indentured servitude?
I was listening to an interview with Toni Morrison on NPR. She was promoting her latest book, and she's the one that said that as part of her research for that latest novel of hers, she read White Cargo, The Forgotten History of Britain's White Slaves in America. And I had never heard about it, so I made a note of it, read the book, and I was just fascinated by the subject. And a couple of years later, I thought, I'm going to write a historical novel about it.
Well, your writing is so good, and you're writing in English. Did you learn English as a child, or did you learn it later in life?
I learned English as a child because I lived in Southern California for 1 year when I was 9 years old. And then when I went back to Mexico, I was enrolled in a school that was really, truly bilingual. So that helped.
Well, and besides that, there's all the old English that you had to learn. And even that, the old, what do you call it, the Ulster Scots?
The brogue.
So you went to Northern Ireland and for your research?
Yes, I spent 2 weeks in Belfast. But what really helped for me to learn how to write the dialect was reading other historical novels of the period. So I was just stealing from other authors, how to write certain words. But I did contact an expert on Scots in Scotland because I needed him to translate for me a few phrases.
So tell us just the general background of the white slavery out of Britain. What happened?
Yes, when people wanted in Scotland, Ireland, and England, if people wanted to go to the colonies but they didn't have the money for the passage, then they would sell their freedom for a set term of years. It could be between 4 years and 7 years. And 7 years was the maximum because of the Bible.
Yes, that's right. And that's mentioned in the Bible.
Exactly. And so they would sign away their work, and they would then be, transported to some colony, and they would be sold there. And even though the contract did have an expiration date, for the time that they were indentured servants, they were really, for all intents and purposes, slaves. They had absolutely no rights, no right to marry. They worked for nothing, just, food and lodging, and they were subjected to really horrible treatment. And the other character in my book was a convict. There were in London and Scotland and Ireland, if you were convicted of a crime, very often they would deport you. They would transport you. It was called transportation. And they would also send you to the colonies and sell you to work for whoever bought you for 7 years.
Well, I told you that I had an ancestor on the Mayflower who was an indentured servant.
He was a teacher, right?
George Soule. But I think he must have been a 4-year, because I know he got married. So interesting. I had no idea the extent of it.
Yes, they didn't only buy people to work menial jobs. They would buy teachers to be private tutors for their children.
Well, and one of your characters is a shoemaker. Works as a, what's the word for that? A cordwainer?
A cordwainer. Yes,
Yeah.
they were called cordwainers. Cordwainers made shoes and cobblers fixed them.
Fix them, that's right. And so reading your book, it looked to me like those indentured servants were just like slaves. They were whipping posts, they were beat, they were abused, they were raped by their owners. It was just a horrible life that they had. Not just their life, but their life on the ship. Didn't you live on one of those ships for a while to get the experience?
Yes, there's an 18th century replica tall ship called the Lady Washington, and you can look it up online, and anybody who wants to can live on that ship for 2 weeks and experience what it was like.
So you did chores, is that right? Everyone's
Yes.
assigned to work.
Every morning you wake up, you have breakfast, you brush your teeth, and then it's either taking out the trash or cleaning the kitchen or raising the flags or, cleaning the deck.
Huh. Did you get
It's
seasick?
exhausting.
Did you get seasick?
No, not that time.
Because in your book, a lot of them got seasick. It was a horrible experience going across the Atlantic.
Yes, well, the second time that I went on the Lady Washington, and it was only for a 36-hour journey, we got caught in a storm, and I was so seasick the entire time I could not move. It was the most unpleasant physical sensation I've ever felt. And after that, I went back and rewrote some parts of my book.
Because you know what it's like.
So how long did you do the research?
It took me 7 years to finish the book because at every step of the way, I realized I needed to research something else. How much did it take to mail a letter? What did they eat? How did they, perform funerals? Just every step of the way, you're trying to write something, and you're like, well, at what time did they get up?
Yeah.
So your novel follows two children, correct, who end up meeting each other, and it's a romance, right?
Yes, the girl from London, she is 10 years old when she is convicted of pickpocketing, and she's transported to Maryland to work in a tobacco plantation, and that actually happened. So many, just thousands of children were sold off like this. And the boy from Northern Ireland is 16 years old, and he's an indentured servant. He's not a convict. He sells his work for 4 years to work in Philadelphia.
So besides Scots, Ulster Scots, and besides the British of London and the dialects, you also learned some Delaware Indian language, because the Delaware Indians at the time, by the way, that's my tribe, the Delaware Indians actually helped these two young people escape. So didn't you work with some experts in the language?
Yes, I didn't learn it because it is extraordinarily difficult, but I contacted Jim Rementer, a member of the Delaware tribe, and he is an expert on the Lenape language, and he helped me to translate some words for the book.
So this was also based on fact, though, that the Lenape tribe, the Delaware tribe, did in fact apparently help some of the indentured servants. Is that right?
Yes, indentured servants would run away, and they would take shelter with several tribes. And actually, there were black slaves who would run away, and they would also be adopted into tribes.
I love some of those scenes where they're visiting the Indian village and staying in the dwellings and in the sweat lodge, and the way they would communicate with it. It just felt like actually being there in a part of history. That was wonderful writing.
Well, maybe it'll get, maybe it'll be turned into a movie or a miniseries. Wouldn't that be great?
Yeah.
My pipe dream is that it's picked up either by HBO or the BBC, and they turned it into a series.
I did notice just a tiny tension there between the Catholics and the Presbyterians, which had to be a big deal back in that time of history, especially in Northern Ireland. So you brought a little bit of that into the story as well.
Yes, and when I started writing, I thought I was going to make Blair a closet atheist, but pretty soon I realized, no, Indra, this is not your little atheist manifesto. I want to be historically accurate, and he was born a Presbyterian, and he was going to die a Presbyterian, but I did make it so that in the end he is not as dogmatic as and tribal as when he was at the beginning.
Hear, hear.
So, well, it's a wonderful adventure book, and looking forward to your next novel, whatever that happens to turn out to be. So, any parting words about meaning or purpose or joy in life as a non-believer?
Yes, I realize that having been born is really winning a lottery, and having been born in fortunate circumstances is even more unlikely, considering the billions of years that that we've been through, and the different cultures and the different centuries, and all the bullets that I have avoided. I just cherish each and every day.
Well, that's a very nice way to end the show. Thank you so much, Indra, for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you for watching Free Thought Matters.
Because free thought matters.
Hi, I'm Steve Pinker. In my book, Enlightenment Now, I show that the world has become a better place as reason has been overcoming superstition and tribalism. But the values of the Enlightenment are under attack. That's why I'm a proud member of the Freedom from Religion Foundation, the nation's largest association of free thinkers working to keep state and church separate. Please join me in supporting the Freedom from Religion Foundation to ensure that our government is driven not by religion, but by reason.